Our next topic is fractions. So the goal here is going to be to reduce fractions, add, subtract, multiply, and divide, all using fractions. The first thing that we want to look at is reducing a fraction. And when we say reducing a fraction, we mean we're trying to get the fraction down into its simplest form, so the most simplified. If I'm looking at 36 divided by 84, that's not as reduced as it can be because 36 and 84 share a factor. And that means that there's some number that goes into 36 and 84. So let's think about what that number could be. Well, one number is 2, right? I could divide both of these by 2. So I'll do 36, I'll divide that by 2, and then I'll also do 84 divided by 2. And this isn't the only number. I'm just thinking of a number that goes into both. So 36 divided by 2, that gives me 18. 84 divided by 2, that gives me 42. So I've reduced this fraction down to 18 over 42. But there's still more numbers that go into both of them. So I'll do the same thing again. 2 goes into both, so I'll divide both by 2. Well, 18 divided by 2 is 9. 42 divided by 2 is 21. So we have another fraction, 9 over 21. It's equivalent to 36 over 84, but I still have another number that can go into both of them. I could divide both of these numbers by 3. Well, 9 divided by 3 is 3. 21 divided by 3 is 7. And both 7 and 3 don't share any common divisors, so that's as reduced as we can make it. So my answer is 3/7. That's as reduced as we can get this fraction to be. Another operation we want to be able to do with fractions is to multiply. So multiplying fractions just involves multiplying straight across. So I'll start with my example 1. 6/7 times 3/5. So what I could do, multiply straight across. 6 times 3 is 18. And then on the bottom, 7 times 5, that gives me 35. So 18 over 35. 18 and 35 don't share any factors. There's no number that goes into both. So that's as simplified as we can make this one. For my next example, 25 over 24 times 32 over 55. Now I could go ahead and just multiply straight across, but there's a couple things that you want to see first. The first one is 25 and 55, well, those share some factors. So let's start with that. So my answer is going to be 25 times 32 over 24 times 55. But I'm going to start with the 25 and the 55. So 25, I could take out a 5. And then 55, I could also take out a 5. So I've reduced this down into 5 times 32 over 24 times 11. So I took out a 5 from both the 25 and the 55. Okay, now with this 32 and this 24, 8 goes into both of those numbers. So I could rewrite this to be 5 times 8 times 4. So 32 is 8 times 4. And then 24 is 8 times 3. And now I've taken out an 8 from both of those. So that leaves me with 5 times 4 over 3 times 11, which is a lot easier to do now. So I'll have 20 over 33. Those don't share any factors, so we're done. So what we did before we actually multiplied all the numbers out is we tried to reduce it and then multiply straight across. For division, it's very similar to multiplication. There's just one extra step. All you do is flip the second fraction, so whatever you're dividing by, and then multiply straight across. So my problem here is 21 over 6 divided by 28 over 6. Whatever you're dividing by, flip it and multiply straight across. So I'm dividing by that 28 over 26, so I'll flip it, and now I'm going to multiply straight across. So I'll have 21 times 6 over 6 times 28, but you see they both have a 6 in them, so that's 21 over 28. But those share a common factor. 7 goes into both 21 and 28, so 21 is 3 times 7, 28 is 4 times 7, so my 7s will cancel, and I'm left with 3/4. So for division, whatever you're dividing by, flip it, and then multiply. And I do want to say something very quickly. What if you were dividing by something like 2? So what if I was doing 1/4 divided by 2? Well, keep in mind that any whole number is the same as that whole number over 1. So dividing by 2 or multiplying by 2, rewrite it as 2 over 1. Just keep that in mind in case it comes up. For addition and also subtraction, you're going to have to find what's called a least common multiple to find the common denominator. It doesn't have to be the least common multiple, but that's probably going to be your easiest. So a common denominator is going to be a number that both of the denominators divide into. So for example, 7/9 plus 1/3. I'm trying to think of what's the least common multiple of 9 and 3. So I need a number that 9 goes into and also 3 goes into. So what I could do is start listing multiples of each one. So multiples of 9, 9, 18, 27, keeps on going. Multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, and it keeps going. The smallest number that appeared in both of these lists was 9. So my least common multiple is 9. That's what I'm going to make the new denominator. So I'm going to rewrite both of these to be over 9. Okay, so this first fraction, going from 7/9 to 7/9, I don't do anything. But for 1/3, I multiplied the bottom by 3, which means I need to multiply the top by 3. So really what I did was multiply this one by 3 over 3. So that gave me 3/9. And now that I have a common denominator, I don't add the denominators. I keep that as 9, but I am going to add the numerator, so add the top. And I get 10. So 7/9 plus 1/3 would be 10/9. And now we're going to look at subtraction. For subtraction, again, we're going to have to find a common denominator if you need to, and then subtract. So for this first one, I don't have any sort of different denominators. They're both 6. So our answer is going to be over 6. And now I'll just subtract the tops. So 13 minus 9 is 4. But I don't want to leave this as 4/6 because 2 goes into both of those. So 4 is 2 times 2. 6 is 3 times 2. We'll get rid of the 2's, and I get 2 over 3. Before this second example, I am going to have to change my denominator. So I'll go ahead and write out what it's going to look like. Over here to the side, your least common multiple of 3 and 6. So you're thinking, what number can I think of in my head that 3 and 6 both go into? And if you're confused, go ahead and list out your multiples. So multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, goes on forever. Multiples of 6, 6, 12, 18, goes on forever. I could use 12. That would be fine. It's just that you're going to have bigger numbers. So I'm going to choose 6 instead because that was the smallest. You can choose any multiple, but to make things easier, choose the smallest. So my new denominator is going to be 6. I didn't do anything to my second fraction, so we'll leave that as 1/6. For my first fraction, what did I multiply the 3 by to get to 6? Well, I multiplied it by 2. So I'm going to have to multiply the top and the bottom by 2, which gives me 4. So 4/6 minus 1/6. I'm going to keep the denominator as 6 and then subtract 4 minus 1, which gives me 3. 3 goes into both of those, so I'll pull out a factor of 3. So 3 is 3 times 1, 6 is 2 times 3. The 3's will cancel, so I'm left with 1/2.